Housing construction has been soaring in Edmonton. According to the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, our city led the country in housing starts in 2024, seeing a 39% increase from the year prior. Most of the building has been happening in new neighborhoods, but infill homes are also rapidly rising. This series of stories looks at how infill is changing communities and the response. Their construction can be loud and disruptive, but it is the long-term effects of this infill build that have the people who live next door considering leaving.
You've got everything the way you want and you figure you can spend the rest of your life here. I don't know if I can anymore.
Barbara Knipp and her husband have lived in their McKernan home 40 years. They've seen plenty of change in the neighborhood, but this is too much, too close to home.
So now I've got an 8-plex that's on my south fence. It goes beyond the front of my house and all the way back to my garage.
Knipp's backyard has fruit trees, berry bushes, and in the warmer months, a vegetable garden that she harvests, cans, and eats through the year. She worries about how this will impact her yard.
Am I going to have any light in my back? Never mind privacy, but light. And there's nothing that you can do. Like I called the city, everything is according to the city specs.
8 units of housing, up to 3 stories in height, are now permitted on any residential lot in Edmonton of a certain size. The change came into effect just over a year ago under the city's new zoning bylaw.
It includes anything from like a semi-detached, duplex, triplex, row house, or up to like under 4-story apartments. And so it helps housing integrate better into existing neighborhoods because you're not just plopping a high-rise in the middle of a neighborhood.
Crystal Kajener is the director of the city's housing action team. It's working to increase housing of all types in all areas.
Edmonton in 2 years has grown by 117,000 people, which to put that in perspective is more than the population of Red Deer. We don't necessarily have a choice in terms of how many people are moving into Edmonton. What we do have a choice is, do we provide housing?
In December, the average price of a home in the Edmonton area was $435,000, a 12.2% increase from the year prior. The rise significant. But Kajener says without these new builds, it would be much worse.
One of the things that we know with housing supply is if we remove those barriers, we make it really easy to build as much housing as the market demands, it's going to help prevent those huge price spikes that just drive up the cost of housing to unattainable areas.
The city's goal of maintaining overall affordability, a hard sell for the Knipps, who say they are already experiencing a drop in their quality of life.
I have been so stressed out.
Questions around infill housing have led to packed community meetings, and supporters and detractors of the new zoning bylaw are preparing for this to be a municipal election issue. This infill information session spurred by people who live in and around the Aspen Gardens neighborhood, where existing homes are set to be replaced by new development.
Edmonton has experienced a lot of growth in the last year, over 100,000 people, and the new zoning bylaw is going to help us meet those housing demands.
Everything from parking, the way garages are built, the fact that we have 8 plexes in residential neighborhoods on very small lots.
On the same evening, a free webinar called There's a Better Way.
It's all about increasing supply, no matter what. And that changes everything.
The grassroots group Coalition for Better Infill put on this event. It is strongly opposed to the city's zoning bylaw and tried to stop it from going through.
We're not saying no infill. We just think city policies have been really misguided.
The bylaw that came into effect at the start of 2024 allows up to 8 units of housing, up to 3 stories in height, on any residential lot of a certain size. City planners call this gentle infill. People like Kevin Taft say it is extreme.
People love their neighborhoods. And what this kind of thing is doing is ripping up one of those special things that Edmonton has.
No city is frozen in time. Every city undergoes change. Change can be very difficult. It can be very emotional, especially when it happens right next door to you.
Councillor Michael Jans has long been a proponent of infill housing. He says building in instead of out gives people choice, rejuvenates older neighborhoods, and reduces urban sprawl.
Edmontonians know that we can't keep building out forever, that urban sprawl is not just environmentally bankrupting us, but it's also financially ruining us.
They'll build massive neighborhoods and then there's nothing there for you.
Jeff Funston went from owning on the outskirts to renting in the central West End. The main driver, he says, was the lack of school options for his kids.
He was going to have to bus to Mill Woods from being on the outside of the Henday, so it just wasn't something that was acceptable for us.
His family currently lives in a new infill townhouse, one of many that have popped up in the Jasper Place area in recent years.
I welcome it. I like the variety of houses that you can have. It's not so cookie cutter, and there's a lot of houses here that just, it's time.
We need the homes built now. We know rents are going up. We know we're in a housing crisis. We know that the steps that Edmonton is taking is preserving affordability, and that's really important.
With a municipal election coming up in October, Coalition for Better Infill wants this to become a major issue.
Talk to friends, talk to family, talk to their city councillors and start pushing back.
The new infill rules have even divided builders. Some say they've been a very positive change. Others believe they've gone too far.
So this unit here is a 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath townhouse unit.
This is Neeraj Nav's wheelhouse. He's the president of Endura Developments, the company behind many of the infill homes popping up in West Edmonton.
This year we're scheduled to do about 30 of these multifamily projects.
He started building skinny homes on single lots 10 years ago. Now he's only building multiplexes.
I think there's a surging demand. I mean, the last unit we built, we were able to stabilize in roughly a month, which is, that's 8 units, and that's for us, that's insane.
All of Nav's recent builds are rentals. The federal government is currently incentivizing these kinds of developments, offering loans that cover up to 95% of construction costs to borrowers.
It's sort of a points-based system, and so if you hit certain affordability or energy efficiency or climate compatibility or accessibility requirements, then you can get more benefits like the longer amortization and things like that.
Got a queen-size bed in here.
Combined with Edmonton's new zoning bylaw, NAF calls it the perfect storm for explosive development. The bylaw allows up to 8 units of housing, up to 3 stories in height, to be built on any residential lot in Edmonton of a certain size. On some corner lots, 9 units are allowed.
Guys are getting a lot more house for the money. And people are moving here because it's still an affordable place to live. So a unit like this in Toronto might run someone upwards of $4,000 a month, whereas in Edmonton it's still $2,100.
This is a basic build. We always build like this. We don't deviate.
Sandy Lafleur has been building boutique infills in Edmonton for 20 years. She says she actually preferred the building rules before the bylaw overhaul.
Them removing portions of the mature neighborhood overlay is taking away that protection that the communities and the people living in the communities used to have. We live in an older neighborhood ourselves, have raised our family there, had a huge quality of life.
Infill builder Voyan Vilamanovich was part of the working group that helped the city revamp the rules.
I think that it's very innovative in what we did in the last several years to absolutely revamp the zoning bylaws in our whole city, and obviously that comes with growing pains.
He says incentives to build in mature neighborhoods are needed, since small companies like his are competing with big builders on the outskirts.
Like I've had guys just say, I'm not even showing up at your site, I've doubled my costs. He's like, well, why? Why should I go and pour 1 garage in the infills when I can prep and pour 10 of them in a row in a calendar day?
The Edmonton area set a new record for housing starts last year at more than 18,300. The city's goal is for half of new housing units to be built in mature neighborhoods, where populations have been shrinking.
The houses that were built in the 60s and 70s were being designed for larger families with more bedrooms, and over time the size of the average household in Canada has declined.
Nath says while his developments aren't always welcomed at first, those views usually change.
But once these units are built and families have moved in, the neighbors are then connecting with our tenants, and they're developing relationships, and people are kind of coming around to what can be created.
Whether you are for or against them, there's no debating infill has led to more housing choice, co-housing being one of them.
Actually, I'll let you do this. Okay.
It's dinner time at Urban Green Co-housing in Old Strathcona. This feast, prepared by the people who live here, for the people who live here.
I think this has cinnamon.
Residents here eat together often. There are common meals once a week.
What drew me to it is knowing your neighbors. It's community. It's the lower carbon footprint. This is where people sign up. There's me, I'm going to do a Dutch peasant food one.
Hermina Joldersma moved in a year and a half ago after spending a decade living in Yellowknife.
After the pandemic hit, I thought I want to live closer to wherever it is that I need to go, my son, etc. And also I thought the environmental crisis is heating up.
She bought one of 26 units in the building. All have a kitchen and a bathroom, but there's also a common kitchen and common bathrooms. As well, a large common area. Kids' room, book nook, party room, rooftop patio, and guest room with an accessible washroom.
The biggest challenges have had to do actually with maintaining the space, because we all committed to being part of, to doing our own maintenance and cleaning. And some people have less capacity than others.
Della Dennis is a founding member of Urban Green Co-housing. More than a decade ago, she and 8 other investors bought the 4 single-family homes this building replaced.
For the 2 or 3 blocks around here, Monique and I went around knocking on doors, just saying, we purchased the property, this is our plan. And there were 2 or 3 people at the door who said, and you won't be able to build it because we'll shut you down. And the rest of the people pretty much said, that sounds interesting.
A co-housing architect helped with the design. The original concept was 6 stories, but community concerns and zoning issues led to it being reduced to 4. The building is fossil fuel free and has other energy efficient features, such as solar panels.
Our units are well sealed. We have, this isn't so much efficiency, but we have very, very good quality soundproofing for airborne sound.
Something that allows Dennis to make music without worry.
I have a piano in my suite. I can play it and my neighbor next door doesn't hear me. Their 2 boys can have a knock them down, drag them out fight and I don't hear it. So that's what you need if you have a multi-generational community.
I hear it in the building that people who otherwise might lead very isolated lives don't have that experience.
Lisa Dixon lives in a Vancouver co-housing community and is on the Canadian Co-housing Network board. She says there are 24 established communities in Canada and another 22 being developed.
I see it becoming more and more popular. It's a great way to live alone with other people.
It feels very much like home. And I think that's in part because you know the people. That's super important to me.
Urban Green is one of 2 co-housing communities here in Alberta. It is full, with residents paying between $300,000 and $600,000 for their suites. Well, that's it for this series. Thank you so much for watching.